Good morning. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be back with you live. I was off yesterday because I was traveling, visiting with my granddaughter after a trip, a two-leg trip that turned out to be a one-leg trip. I do a podcast now for American Family Radio, and I just recorded that podcast this morning. And while it is obviously similar and will overlap, I've got my tea this morning because my voice is a little worn, but it obviously overlaps a little bit with E.W. Jackson for America. It is a different program because it's for American Family Radio. And I don't think you've seen any of them yet, because if you want to, I do them video and audio, but AFR is using only the audio portion of the podcast, only the audio of the podcast, not the video. So if you want to hear those, go to afr.net or the AFR app, and they're posted usually on Wednesday mornings, sometime on Wednesday morning. I did that program and neglected to mention something that I really should have mentioned. I left on Friday, headed to Marion, North Carolina, which is right near Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm sure you all have seen the news of what happened in Asheville. That area was devastated. Devastated. And first of all, our hearts really do go out to the folks who are facing that and had their homes washed away. I mean, we got hundreds of people missing. Apparently, I can't imagine what it must have been like, but apparently a flood swept through that place and just took people away, literally. The last count I heard was 39 dead, and just hundreds missing. So I think it is going to be, oh, no, you know what, folks, I'm sorry about that. Actually, well, you know what, let me not mix up the numbers, because there's one number of over 100 dead, but I think that's overall for Helene, but I think the North Carolina number is 39 dead in North Carolina. In fact, you know what? Let me just double check that right now, because it was devastating. Well, my point is, we were on our way to that area. That's where we were going. Let's see. Wait a minute. Oh my goodness, folks. Do I have the number that wrong? No. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad I double checked this. I guess, I don't know how long it's been since I looked at the numbers, but it's changed pretty quickly, because the number now is 160 dead. Now, that's Fox Weather reporting 160 dead, but so there were different reports. Here's one. AP is reporting 130. And wow, folks. I mean, that's bad. That is really bad. So Fox Weather's is 150, and NBC 150. I mean, 160, NBC 150. So 130 to 160 people dead right now. And we probably won't have an exact number for a while, but that is a devastating number. I apologize for even giving you an old number like that, because I think that must have been the number I heard the following morning after the thing had hit, and that was what was stuck in my head. I had no idea the number had gone to 130 to 160 dead. But at any rate, I said all that to say I neglected to mention that on my American Family Radio program, but our hearts really do go out, and we need to be praying for those folks, because that's a lot of people, a lot of families, and the thing is, they're still searching for people. So I don't know what that must have been like, but you know, our imaginations can. I mean, in order to kill that many people, I mean, that thing must have come upon people without warning, or awareness of what was about to hit them, and just literally swept them away. Because obviously, if you know something like that is coming through, you get out of the way. That's different even than a hurricane, which you think, well, maybe I can tough it out. If my building withstands the pressure, I can tough that out. But a flood, you can't tough out, particularly if it's a torrent of water rushing at you. You cannot tough that out. That's likely to severely injure you, or more likely to kill you, because it's going to knock you every which way, if not drown you. And even if you can swim with that kind of rushing water, you don't swim your way out of that one. So at any rate, I wanted to make sure I corrected that and mention that, because that is a very, very big story. In fact, again, because I had not been following it closely, because what I've been focusing on is the debate and all of that, and I've been traveling, so I hadn't honed in on this. But man, so to the folks in North Carolina and all the people who were hit by Hurricane Helene, our hearts go out to you and our prayers go up for you. And AFR works with an organization that does rescues and emergency help in these kinds of situations, a Christian organization. I'm sure they will be active with Helene. And I know you all have seen the pictures. I mean, it looks like a wasteland. But at any rate, and that's where we were headed. On Friday night, I was in Charlotte, about to drive up to Marion, which is, again, right next door to Asheville, which seems to have been the epicenter. In fact, I've gone to this event now for 5 or 6 years. I've flown into Asheville to get to the event in Marion. But, I know that now it was nothing but the Holy Spirit. I looked at the drive we had. We had about a 2-hour drive ahead of us. I looked at the drive, and it was about, I think, 8 o'clock. Our plane had been delayed, and I said, you know what, we're not driving that tonight. I said, we're going to stay overnight here in Charlotte. Well, let's find a hotel here in Charlotte, stay overnight here, and then we'll finish the drive to get there tomorrow morning in the daylight, where we can see everything, where things will calm down somewhat. And as we were heading to the hotel, had it not been for the delays, we'd have driven right into the thing, because we were running several hours late. I forget exactly that, but we were very, very late. And as we were headed to the hotel, we got the word that power was out at the venue. The event had been canceled. And then as the news began to roll in, we realized, oh my goodness, that's the least of it, the power outage. The worst of it is the flooding, the down power lines, the trees. And we found out they closed every road into western North Carolina was closed out of Charlotte. Said, don't travel these roads, don't go. So, needless to say, we didn't go. But then I was due at First Baptist Church in Texarkana for Sunday morning. So instead, we just had a respite, a day to for me to get myself together, because I had to speak twice there. A day for me to get myself together, and then we headed out late afternoon to head on up to Texarkana. So, man, I'm talking about how bad this was. I could have been right in the middle of it. I could have been right in the middle of it. So I really feel for those people who were. I have heard that I guess a lot of people decided not to try to do the conference, hearing the news, the Salt and Light Conference. And so I haven't heard of any injuries or any deaths of people who went to the conference itself or were trying to get there. So thank God for that. And our hearts go out for all the people who have been devastated by it. So I just wanted to express myself on that. It's particularly close to home, since It's particularly since close to home, since that my screen went black for a second there. I don't know whether you all saw that, but it's particularly close to home since that's where I was going. Okay, all right. Let me get to what I want to talk to you about today, and that is primarily the debate last night. This thing. First of all, let me just say right out the bat, J.D. Vance won it hands down. It's not even a close call. He won it hands down. And he won it hands down in spite of the unfairness of the moderators. Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan fact-checked J.D. Vance 3 times. And they had made a commitment, apparently, I don't know whether this was in writing or not, that they would not fact-check the candidates, that the candidates could fact-check each other. But they couldn't help themselves because they're leftists. This is the problem with the media. They are so deluded that they think that somehow they are simply neutral but enlightened. And so when they interject themselves, they're doing so for the good of everyone who needs their lofty wisdom and insight in order to see things in a balanced way. These people are leftists through and through. So they fact-checked J.D. Vance on Springfield being inundated by illegal immigrants. I forget which one came up with, but many of the people in Israel, many of the people in Springfield, I'll get to Israel, many of the people in Springfield are Haitians, and they are legal immigrants. And J.D. Vance quickly fact-checked the fact-checkers and said, no, they're legal only because Biden has come up with this stupid app that you can download and with this pro forma application get approval to enter the country, so-called legally. But it bypasses all the normal processes that people want to come to this country personally have to go through. So they're really not legal. They're Joe Biden legal, if you will. And Joe Biden's about as legal as the mafia, as far as I'm concerned. But they fact-checked him on that. He corrected them. And then on climate change, after basically they Trump thinks climate change is a hoax. Well, it is a hoax. It's nothing but a big power grab. We're going to save the planet. Well, how are you going to save the planet when you've got India, Russia, China, and other nations around the world spewing out hydrocarbons as quickly as they can using everything they can get their hands on to try to provide energy for their country, and they're not giving a whit about some nonsense about destroying the planet. But somehow Americans are supposed to take on the brunt of this, and we're supposed to take on all the costs and all the expense, because after all, the weather just proves that there's climate change. Human beings can be, particularly these leftists, these godless people, they can be so arrogant and full of themselves. Every one of us on this earth today is going to live somewhere between, in the normal course, our 70s and maybe 100. Jimmy Carter just had his 100th birthday. That is a speck of time, as the Bible calls it, but a moment. But somehow you've got this panoramic view of human history and what the weather has done. They said, we haven't seen a storm like Helene with the devastation since 1917. I think that was the one forecaster said. Well, what was happening in 1917? Climate change there too? I shared with you all at one point, it's been a while now, I think it was the flood of 1926, but don't hold me to it. If I'm not mistaken, that thing devastated 126 square miles because it just rained and rained and rained and rained and rained and flooded all over the place. I'll have to look up that exact storm, but I thought, so what was that? Was that climate change? The Industrial Revolution was just getting started. And who knows what happened in 1626 or 1526. I mean, but these people, they are so busy wanting to play God and wanting to use your resources and mine to do it that they just had to. And so one of them says, after J.D. Vance's comments, after at the end of that portion of the debate, they chime in. The overwhelming consensus of scientists is that climate change is real. And I thought to myself, yeah, the overwhelming consensus of scientists that we were being told was that 6-foot distancing, that wearing masks, that getting the shot was going to stop the spread of COVID. And if you got the shot, you wouldn't get COVID and you wouldn't spread COVID. And all of it was a lie. Every bit of it was a lie. But now somehow we're supposed to, the overwhelming consensus of scientists, and we're all supposed to bow down. Oh, we are not worthy. The scientists have spoken and we bow down. Oh, give me a break. And then Margaret Brennan fact-checked J.D. Vance on housing when he said the housing prices are being inflated in part by the surge of illegal aliens coming into the country, putting further pressure on the need for housing in our country and driving prices up. She says, there are many factors leading to high housing costs. Well, that's true, but if you know basic market economics, demand is one of those factors. And when you bring in millions of illegal aliens, you are increasing demand for housing. Unless you think they're going to live in trees. So, in spite of all that, J.D. Vance won the debate hands down. And here was the major point, the coup de grace. And I'll go through some of the specific issues. I can't get to all of them today, but I'll go through some of the specific issues that were talked about. But here's the coup de grace. If Comrade Kamala, that's me talking, Comrade Kamala, but if Comrade Kamala has all these great things that she's going to do for the country, and why hasn't she already done them? I mean, she's been in office for 4 years. Why hasn't she worked with her president to implement all these things? Why are all these things necessary? They should already be done. She should be saying, we did this, 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 and we're going to keep doing it. Instead, she's saying, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to, well, why didn't you already do it? Well, she didn't already do some of these things because her heart's not in it in the first place. First of all, she's an incompetent who doesn't know what to do. She's been an incompetent serving with a person who is cognitively disabled. Yeah, because that's exactly what he is. The man is so diminished, it's travesty that he's holding the office of President of the United States. It's sad for our country, because the whole world knows it. And the whole world knows we're weak as a result. And that's why we've got all these conflagrations happening all over the place, because the world knows Biden is too weak and too infirm to do anything about it, but look on in a kind of stupor. You know, trying to shake hands with people who aren't there, and you know, it's sad. But that's the coup de grace, and it's true. No matter what Tim Walz said, the question is, why haven't you done all these things? Because she's had 4 years to do it. Yeah, well, we know why. Incompetence, and frankly, the things that she claims she wants to do now, like securing the border, she's not interested in securing the border. Are you kidding me? Fracking, increasing energy production in America, she's not interested in that, not in the least. They should have asked her, would she restore the Keystone Pipeline, since she's so interested in increasing energy? Is she going to replenish the strategic oil reserves, since she's so interested in she's not going to do any of that because she's not interested in that. The woman is a Marxist, and she's now pretending to be some kind of mainstream politician. And there are none of those in the Democrat Party anymore. There are no mainstream politicians. They're all leftists. They're all far leftist, radical, Marxist, socialists, and communists for the most part. Now, I said all. There may be some exceptions, but believe me, you'll need a magnifying glass and a pair of tweezers to find them. And when you find them, they're likely on the verge of leaving the Democrat Party because they've come to the conclusion that it is not a rational party anymore, that it is a party given over to extreme ideology. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit then, in the time we've got left, about the debate itself and some of the issues. First of all, on the Middle East, Israel has been attacked now by Iran. 180 missiles fired into Israel. Apparently, they had very little effect, thank God. While this administration is constantly telling Israel that they need to negotiate a ceasefire. You know, it's kind of hard to negotiate a ceasefire when somebody's firing at you. I mean, and all that does is project weakness. And you know what that means? More missiles fired at you. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have a fundamental principle right, and the Democrat Party and Kamala and Tim have it wrong. And it's the principle enunciated by George Washington: the best way to assure peace is to prepare for war. In other words, you project strength, and by doing so, you disincentivize aggressive action or action that precipitates conflict, because people don't want to, leaders of other countries do not want to endure the punishment they will face for waking a sleeping giant. But when you project weakness, guess what you get? Slapped right upside the head. Now, of course, we're living in a different age and culture, but my daddy taught me, and probably many of you watching saw the same lesson. You know, the best way to deal with a bully is to knock the snot out of him. And I tell you, it's amazing. I had two incidents in which, you know, somebody tried to bully me, and I did that. And guess what? We became friends then. Muammar Gaddafi was trying to be like Iran, exporting terrorism and supporting terrorism and trying to blow up airplanes and all of that, until Ronald Reagan put a missile up his backside. And all of a sudden, Muammar Gaddafi became a lot more cooperative, a lot less belligerent. Now, folks, this is realpolitik. This is the real world. This is not, we're not in heaven. Praise God. I was interviewing with Yael Eckstein, the president of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And I was saying to her that I wish we lived in the era now, when nations beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and nation no longer lifts up sword against nation, neither shall they study war anymore. But we're not in that time. And we have a responsibility to defend our nation, our people, our land, our security, our people around the world. And you can't do that if you're projecting weakness and appeasement. They tried that with Adolf Hitler. How'd that work out for them? Brought the country to the brink of utter collapse and allowed a man to rise to power whose plan was to enslave the entire world, to bend the entire world to his will. You know, we could have broken him a lot easier, a lot sooner. But oh, no, 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 no. We can work with Hitler. Hitler's rational. We can reason with him. Let's not precipitate anything. Until finally, Hitler marched into Poland. They realized, you know what? I think he's coming for us. Yeah, he was. And he was always coming for us. Iran's coming for America. If we don't allow Israel to stop them, yeah, we're just as much a target as Israel is. We allow them to just enrich themselves with oil and grow and develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. Guess who else they're going to fire at? Guess who they're going to fire at next? You think they won't? These people have an apocalyptic ideology. They're nuts. And the only way to bring them back to sanity is, again, do for them what Ronald Reagan did for Muammar Gaddafi. Put a couple missiles in their houses and, they might see things a little differently. Or they might still make belligerent noises, but I guarantee you, man, a missile in your compound will ruin your day. It will ruin your day. But all of this, $100 million we have allowed Iran to enrich itself with because of the lifting of sanctions, allowing them to sell their oil, releasing frozen funds, $100 million. And what are they doing with it? Attacking our greatest ally in the Middle East. And frankly, in my view, probably getting a nuclear weapon ready to use against Israel. While we sit back and say, "Oh no, we can reason with them. We've got to do a better job of diplomacy," while they plot to kill Donald Trump. It is utterly ridiculous. It really is utterly ridiculous. Okay. Wow, I'm not gonna get to a lot of this, but they talked about climate change, and once again, J.D. Vance pointed out, if you really believe in climate change, you want to bring manufacturing back to our country because we have the cleanest industries in the world. India doesn't, China doesn't, Russia doesn't. These other countries of the world, they could care less. Because all this climate change stuff is an opportunity for them to have wealth transferred from wealthy countries, particularly the United States of America, to poor countries who, instead of being capitalists and free market people, they're trying to run their country with socialist, totalitarian, tyrannical policies, and they are basically going to try to steal from America to bail themselves out. Enough. The problem in the world is not global warming, it's moral cooling. And what is needed, the issue confronting the planet is not whether we recycle, but whether we repent. That's the issue. Not global warming, but moral cooling. Not recycling, but repentance. Now, of course, J.D. Vance didn't say all that, but he made clear that if you're really committed to climate change, if you really believe all that, then why have you affected policies that have transferred our manufacturing to the countries that have the dirtiest economies in the world? Okay, we've talked already about illegal immigration. This is where they fact-checked him. But again, J.D. Vance just carried the day on that. And Waltz's answer was incoherent. Let me get to this issue so I don't fail to cover it. They did ask Waltz about his claiming to have been in Tiananmen Square. And folks, when claiming to have been in China when the Tiananmen Square massacre took place, and his answer was just embarrassing. It was painful. Because what it really said was that this is a man who was accustomed to lying and getting away with it. Instead of his, folks, and you marvel at this, but again, a liar doesn't know any other way. All he needed to say was, yeah, you know what? I was not in China when the Tiananmen Square event happened. I was in China that summer after it had happened. And I guess I just conflated the two and misspoke. And I really do apologize for that, because, you know, it was not my intention to mislead people and make people think I was in China when the event happened. But my memory just played a trick on me. And, you know, I think people would give him the benefit of the doubt, but he didn't do that. The people who know me, and they know that I'm committed to my community, and they know that I serve, and they've elected me to Congress, and they've elected me. I mean, he danced all around that as if to say, well, even if I'm a liar, the people who've elected me like me, so let's not really talk about me being a liar. I mean, that to me, in effect, was his answer. And to me, it's the same. The man, he's a liar. He says whatever he thinks he needs to say to advance himself and to make himself look good. And he did the same thing when he told his troops he was going to deploy with them to Afghanistan, and then had a sudden change of heart. And again, he could have expressed regret over that. Never has. Never has. So that tells me everything I need to know. Not that I didn't know it already, but it certainly confirms the man is a consummate liar. They talked, of course, about so-called reproductive rights, which is nothing but more a euphemism, but the right to kill an unborn baby. And J.D. Vance, I thought, acquitted himself well there as well, although I don't think any Republican, including Donald Trump, is talking about this issue the way we need to, because what we really need to do, pro-life people need to do, is start talking about the baby. J.D. Vance, at the very end of his comments, said we want to make the country pro-baby. So he did use the word baby finally, but that's the word we ought to be using every time this comes up. And with all the debate, the words that were expressed, he used that word one time. In fact, really, Waltz had a great line for his side. He said, we're not pro-abortion, we're pro-woman. Well, now that's a lie, because they're talking about shout your abortion, and, you know, they're celebrating it, clearly. We Republicans have got to talk about that a woman's natural instinct is to protect her baby, to protect her progeny. And we've got people who seem to be hell-bent, and I say that with the full spiritual weight that of that expression, who seem hell-bent on convincing women that what they really should be committed to is killing their own child. What they really should be committed to is getting rid of their own progeny, their own unborn baby. And they should be proud of it. And I think we begin to talk about babies and talk about the fact that each and every one of us went through that stage in the same way those unborn babies that are slated for killing on the abortion table, they're just like us. I said in my remarks at First Baptist Church, I say, you know, they convince themselves that, well, some babies they're not going to have a good life, and they're going to be born into poverty, and maybe they're going to have a disability, and blah 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 blah. And I said, oh, you mean like me? I thank God I wasn't born with any physical disability, but I was certainly born into a very bad situation: poverty, broken home, foster care. J.D. Vance is another example of that. Raised by his grandmother. His mother was drug addicted. These people want to play God and act like they can look at a person at the nascent stage, at the stage of Early development saying, your life's not worth living. We will get rid of you now. I mean, you realize how monstrous that is? We need to appeal to women's instinct to love and protect their babies, as opposed to getting off on these sidetracks. Well, what about rape? And what about incest? Well, James Robinson was a product of rape, and one of the greatest evangelists this country's ever produced. I mean, these people want to play God, is really what it is. And we need to start making that argument, not allowing ourselves to get caught in, well, 15 weeks or 21 weeks or 6 weeks or this, that, and the other. We need to raise the loftiness of the argument and the level of the argument so that we prick the consciences of people and we force Democrats and leftists and these pro-baby killing people to say, yes, I don't care about the baby. I mean, Bill Maher said it, didn't he? Didn't he? He said, yeah, I know it's a baby. He said, I know we're killing a baby. He said, and I'm okay with that. Well, my goodness, at least the man was honest. Okay, they also talked about, let me see, how much time do I have here? I don't have a clock in front of me. Oh, I've only got about 5 minutes left. But they also talked, I'll summarize these other issues. They talked about gun violence. And of course, I don't care what Walsh says, he's a gun grabber. Oh, I'm a hunter. Oh, give me a break. They're gun grabbers. What they really want to do is disarm the American people. And J.D. Vance pointed out, most of the crimes committed with firearms in America are committed with guns that are stolen. And many of those guns are coming across the border. So you want to really deal with gun violence. You want to really try to limit the number of guns that are available in the streets. Deal with the invasion of illegal aliens into our country, bringing fentanyl, bringing guns, bringing every imaginable thing that will help destroy our people. So, and Walsh really, the only thing he can say is, we have red flag laws and we have this and we have that. I mean, it's all about limiting the Second Amendment. As Kamala Harris said, just because you have guns in your home doesn't mean we're not going to come in there and make sure that you're handling those guns the way we want you to. I mean, really? You're coming into my house? You're going to ransack my house to see how I handle my firearms? Ever read the Constitution of the United States of America about unreasonable searches and seizures? Wow. These people have just no regard for the Constitution, for human dignity, for the inherent liberty with which every American, every human being for that matter, is endowed by God. They have no respect for any of that. In fact, I didn't talk about, let's get to this one last. They raised the issue of democracy. And again, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. And I wish J.D. Vance would have pointed that out. But what he did point out was, look, you people are agents of censorship. You worked with big tech to censor people during COVID. And Walsh didn't get a chance to say it all, but he said repeatedly, well, the Constitution doesn't protect hate speech. The Constitution doesn't protect misinformation. But so misinformation according to whom? Well, obviously, according to Harris and Walsh, if they think it's misinformation, then they have the right to censor it. No, that's not the way it works. Because on that basis, nobody would have freedom of speech, because everybody might hate something that somebody is saying and consider that to be inappropriate, misinformation, hate speech. And before you know it, there's no freedom of speech at all. No, the best way to combat bad speech is good speech. And whatever happened to Voltaire's formulation, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. We need to bring that up too. That here again, that's But J.D. Vance did very well. He didn't quite say what I've said there, but he certainly brought up the censorship issue and made clear that's inconsistent with freedom and inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States. Finally, in their closing arguments, and I'll end with this, Waltz brought up the politics of joy. And, you know, folks, I just find that utterly stunning. These people really are a cult. Because anybody who's looking to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for joy, I feel sorry for you. We Christians know better than that. I'm not looking to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for joy. I'm looking to Jesus for joy. Now look, I really do believe this. Proverbs 14:34, I believe it is. When the righteousness exalts a nation, sin is a reproach to any people. And Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Now, I want to rejoice and not mourn. But my joy comes from Jesus, not from any politician. This song is this song is probably 25, 30 years old now. Called I think the name of the song is Jesus, You're the Center of My Joy. It goes, and all that's good and perfect comes from you. You're the source of my contentment, hope for all I do. Jesus, you're the center of my joy. This joy I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away, folks. That's where our joy comes from. That's where our peace comes from. We can't look to politics to give us that, or politicians to give us that. And to me, it's supreme arrogance to suggest that some incompetent, airhead politician who happens to be a woman named Kamala Harris and a Marxist to boot, and her Marxist running mate, who I watched. Have you seen some of these videos of him coming out on a stage to fairly large crowds? I mean, the man looks like a clown, like a buffoon, you know, like it's just, he talks about weird. He looks weird, throwing his hands all up in the air. And I mean, it's bizarre. It really is. Lord knows I'm not looking to them for joy. And anybody who is, whew, you are in trouble. And for them to suggest that somehow they're going to bring back joy. Lord have mercy. Well, I guess we don't need Jesus. We've got Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. No, thank you. I'll take the real thing. And the real thing is Jesus the Christ, not Kamala the communist. All right, well, look, that's going to do it for today. Folks, we just need to pray and get fully engaged and involved. Oh, let me mention one other thing to you. I think I mentioned this on Friday. Oh, WPZE in Atlanta has denied our application to do ads on their radio station urging Christians to vote their Christian values. I shared that with you, I think, on Friday. If you haven't already, and that's all. It's a nonprofit ad. Didn't endorse Donald Trump. We're going to do some endorsements, but not stand the nonprofit because we can't do that. So we have a PAC that's going to take over that role, and that there's a firewall between the two, so they're two separate organizations. Stand is standamerica.us. That's our website. The PAC is Stand America. PAC.us. PAC at the end of that .us. So they're two entirely different funding sources and so forth. But to tell us that as a gospel station, the largest, by the way, in Atlanta, in Georgia, that you're not going to run our ads because your legal department said you couldn't run an ad that simply says Christians are to vote their Christian and biblical values and put biblical principle above all else, above race, above party, above personality, and you can't run that? I mean, folks, we know that that's a crock. We know that that's not what's going on. What's really going on is they've got marching orders from the Democrat Party not to air anything that would have black Christians particularly thinking independently and thinking according to the Word of God. And they're a gospel station. But you know, the Democrat Party doesn't want God in the picture, because then people might do what God wants them to do instead of doing what the Democrat Party wants them to do. And thinking the way God tells them to think instead of thinking the way the Democrat Party tells them to think. Again, the ad wasn't about Democrats or Republicans. It wasn't about Trump versus Harris. It was simply, Christians, vote your Christian values. And they said, no, we're not running it. Would you please ask them for me where they get off as a so-called Christian and gospel station telling Bishop Jackson and Stan that they will not air their ads because somehow their legal department doesn't want them to air? And by the way, if you want to check out the ad, it's posted on standamerica.us. You can read it. I don't know whether we posted the text, but you can certainly listen to it. It's only 1 minute. It's just a 1 minute ad. Their number, WPZE FM 102.5 in Atlanta. Their telephone number is 404-765-9750. 404-765-9750. Did I say 60 the first time? Let me say it one more time. 404-765-9750. That's WPZE 102.5 FM in Atlanta. The censorship gospel station, they get this one, is censoring Christianity. Oh yeah, a little gospel music is okay, but let's not get into actually being obedient to God's word. We don't need that. That gets in the way of our political agenda. That gets in the way of our racial ideology. That gets in the way of supporting our political masters. Sad. Sad, folks. Listen, God bless each and every one of you. So needless to say, we are in the fight. And I wanted them to hear from you, and they're going to obviously hear from us, because I think they're in violation of FCC regulations. I think they engage in arbitrary and capricious decision-making. And frankly, I think they're discriminating against us on the basis of religion, which is a really odd thing for a gospel station to be discriminating against a Christian ad that urges Christians to vote their Christian values, but you claim to be a Christian station. Now that's weird. Wants to talk about weird? Now that's weird. It's not a hip-hop station, not an R&B station. It's a gospel station. But they don't know. They're messing with the wrong people. Because we're not gospel pretenders. We're serious saints of the living God, the children of the Almighty, the congregation of the mighty. And we don't accept defeat. And we don't accept wickedness over righteousness. And we believe that the righteousness of God will prevail over wickedness every single time. Every single time, if willing to stand up. So, I guess that's my cue to end, right? Stand up, step up, speak up. Refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.